we have 40 participants minus me 2, 38. Okay, 38. So there is some of your friends still have not joined us. Okay, hopefully they can join us later, or if they have issues with the help, maybe they can see the recording later. Right? Okay. So are you ready with topic 5? We continue our project planning. Okay. This time, okay. Last week we learned about the infrastructure of the project, right? So for today, still in planning, okay, but focusing on the scope and also WBS. What is WBS? We will learn in this topic, right? So let me share the video first. So if you feel a little bit sleepy, belilah kopi, buatlah kopi kan. Okay, and you can listen while taking a notes, right? Because after this we will have quiz. So actually, if you focus, you may answer the questions correctly. As usual, only two basic questions, right? So just focus and take a little bit notes, right? So you can actually understand the topics well, all right? Okay, stop my video first so that the video will be more smooth. Okay, let me start now.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. Last chapter we have learned the project and substructure on the chapter 4. And now this video gonna present about the chapter 5, which is the scope and the work breakdown structure.
Next, triple constraint. As we know, projects require time, money, people, and technology. Resources provide the means for achieving our project's MOB and also act as a constraint. When we know what we want to achieve, then we can figure out the way to accomplish it. However, there are some cases that stakeholders add new requirements into the project development. Then the project team will visually need more resources and will have to put in more effort in terms of budget and time. For example, nowadays, the labor to build a system is more expensive than the technology itself. As the salary increases, the cost of the project will become more expensive. According to the situation, if workers have additional work, then their time and the cost associated with the time spent doing unscheduled work must be added to the project schedule and budget. This kind of relationship is called triple constraint. Triple constraint will be in balance or inharmony state if the stakeholder expectations are clear. The project is in balance or in harmony when the schedule and budget support the project goals in order to achieve the MOB. If stakeholders know what value to expect from the project, what work will be done, how long it will take, and how much the project will cost, then it could ease the process of development. Why project can be imbalanced? As you can see here, the project becomes imbalanced when the scope increases without adjusting schedule and budget accordingly. When the scope increases, the budget and time will be increased. For example, technology nowadays keep evolving and have new features. Thus, project manager and teams are developing the current project. Stakeholders could add new requirements to get customer attention to meet their needs.
Let's continue with the defining and managing project scope. Scope management process. The first one is to plan scope management, which is to develop a scope management plan, which can be defined as how the project and product scope will be defined, verified, and changed if necessary. The second one is the collect requirement. Collect requirement is focusing on the engaging customer or stakeholders, which can be used in different many methods, such as interviews, workshop, or brainstorming sessions. The third one is to define scope. So define scope is to develop a detailed description of the project and product. The fourth one is to create WBS, which is the work breakdown structure, to organize scope into management work packages. The fifth one is the validate scope processes, which is to formal acceptance of all deliverables. And last but not least, the control scope process, which is the processes for managing all the scope changes. Let's get into the details of the defined scope process. So let's touch on the scope boundary first. So the figure that can be seen is any work within the scope boundary should include only the work or activities that support the project's MOV. So this work is what we want to capture and keep within our fence. The project can do a lot of project activities which is not achieving the project MOV. This can be impactful as the time and resources will be wasted. So to have a clear definition of MOV, definitely important for defining and managing the scope boundary. Such as the SDLC, the System Development Lifecycle. So project-oriented deliverables require time and resources and therefore must be part of the overall project schedule and budget. Their role is to ensure that the project processes are being completed so that the product or system achieve the project's MOV. And they allow the project manager to set a baseline for performance and quality control because they usually require some form of approval before work on the next project phase or deliverable begins. So for example, using the deliverable structure chart, a tool used by the project manager and a team. The second one will be the product-oriented scope. So product-oriented scope is identifying the specific features and functionality of the application system. So this is the first cut of requirement definition. So for an example will be the use case diagram, a system modeling tool used for defining the scope boundary and defining what the system must do. So the development of a use case diagram is an iterative process that can be developed using any methods for collecting requirements such as interviews, workshop, brainstorming session, or focus groups.
Validate scope. Why we need to validate the scope? Validation will test and validate the actual product to ensure it has been developed correctly. As per the project, it helps to find changes or issues during project rather than at the end. So the validation process should include first, verification of the MOV. At this point in the project, the MOV should be clear, defined, and agreed upon. Failure to define and agree on the MOV could result in scope changes later in the project. Next, documentation of all deliverables. Whether deliverable, tangible, or variable, or support the project MOV. Thus, we cannot ignore all these documents. Third, specification of quality standard. We need to know the project are control in place to ensure that work was not only completed but completed to meet specific standard. Next, identification of milestone. In short, milestone tells us that deliverable was not only completed but also reviewed and accepted. Next, lastly, review and acceptance. The project scope must be reviewed and accepted by the project stakeholder. The project team must be clear on what it must deliver. In both cases, expectation must be realistic and agreed upon.
So next, I will be explain about control scope. Control scope is concerned with managing actual changes to the project scope as and when they occur to ensure that any changes to the project scope will be beneficial. So basically, it is about understanding and managing the triple constraints, which is the scope, schedule, and budget. The benefits of the control scope are it keeps the project manager in control of the project, allow the project manager to manage and control the project schedule and budget, and then it will allow the project team to stay focused and on track. So next, there are three potential issues or risks in control scope. So the first one is scope creep. So scope creep describes project team's inability to define the project scope. For example, project team and sponsor have trouble understanding what the project is supposed to accomplish. So scope creep can be minimized by having a clearly defined measurable organizational value, which is MOV. Next is scope creep. Scope creep refers to increasing featureism. For example, project team itself may come across interesting or novel ideas as the project work progresses. Its enthusiasm for adding these ideas can divert its attention or add features and function to the product or system that the project sponsor did not ask for and does not need. So scope creep must be identified and controlled throughout the project because it will lengthen the project schedule, can lead to cost overruns. So the last one is scope leak. Scope leak suggests a fundamental and significant change in the project scope. So it occurs as a result of changes in the environment, the business, and the competitive makeup of the industry. So for example, original scope for the bank's project was to provide new products and services to its customers. Scope creep may be adding a new feature, such as a new product or service not originally defined the project scope. But scope leak, on the other hand, is an impetus to change the project so that the electronic commerce system will allow the bank to obtain additional funding in the open market. So next is the scope change control procedures. So this allow for the identification and handling of all requested changes to the project scope. A scope change procedure may include a scope change request form. The scope change request form needs to contain the description of the change request, and then scope change should be justified to separate the worklights from the must-haves, and then lastly, several alternatives may be listed to assess the impact on scope, schedule, resources, and cost. The key decision makers, for example, the project sponsor, customer, governance committee, etc., must understand and approve these changes because the baseline project plan will have to be adjusted accordingly.
So, what is WBS? WBS represents a logical decomposition of the work to be performed. In other words, it also focuses on how the product, service, or result is naturally divided. In short, the WBS will outline all of the work that the project team will be performed. There are several benefits of using WBS. WBS is used to develop the project plan and helps link the project scope to the schedule and budget. This WBS will help in providing a framework to develop a tactical plan in order to structure the project work. Next is the work package. A work package is smaller components and more manageable units of work which provide a logical basis for defining project activities. This package also will help in assigning resources to those activities. This is to ensure that all the project work is identified. So based on this diagram here, start with the project itself. Then the project will decompose into phases. Each phase will be divided into two, which is deliverable and milestone. The deliverable will further decompose into two, that are activity or task, and milestone where it is deliverable completion. Next is the deliverable versus milestone. Deliverable can include such things as presentation, report, plans, prototypes, and the final application, while the milestone only focus on the achievement. An example like deliverable is like a prototype of user interface, while the milestone is the formal acceptance of the user interface. So with the formal acceptance of the user interface, only then the project team can move on to the next phase of the project. So for the milestone, it is a significant event or achievement where it provides evidence whether a deliverable has been completed or the phase has been formally over. It keeps the team focused, which is better to focus our attention and effort on a series of smaller and short-term deliverables than a larger deliverable. Next milestone also is a realistic as it motivates the project team when their attainment is viewed as success. It also reduces risk by acting as scripters or what we call as proof of concept. The script can be the testing of an idea which is critical to the project success. Not only that, milestone also provide a mechanism for quality control. The completion of the user's interface deliverable should end only with the user's acceptance or otherwise the team will be forced to make a revision. Next is the deliverable test results report. So first, we need to review the test plan with the client so that the key stakeholders are clear as to what we will be testing, how we will conduct the test, and when the test will be carried out. This review may be done as a courtesy or because we need a specific support from the client's organization and therefore must inform the client when that support will be required. Second, the client that we will test the system, we basically carry out the test outline in the test plan. Once the test results are collected, we need to analyze them. After we analyze the test results, we will need to summarize them in the form of a report and presentation to the client. Lastly, if all goes well, the client will approve or sign off on the test results. Then we can move on to the implementation phase of our project. If all does not go well, we need to address and fix any problem. Keep in mind that the test phase is not complete just because we have developed a test plan and created a test report. The client will need to sign off on the test result only if the system meets a certain predetermined quality standard.
In project estimation, there are two things that we will be estimating, which is the project schedule and budget. So how or where do we start estimating? Firstly is by estimating the time taken to complete a particular task. Next is by estimating the cost that corresponds with the completion of the task. Here we have 6 estimation techniques, which are guesstimating, the Delphi technique, time boxing, top-down technique, bottom-up technique, and poker planning. The first estimation technique is guesstimating, which means an estimation made by guessing or randomly selecting numbers. Guesstimating is one of the least accurate and not ideal way for planning a project's budget and schedule. The second technique is the Delphi technique, which is an estimation made by a group of experts where they will discuss on a certain topic and concludes with an agreement. The estimations are done anonymously, and each of the experts will give and compare their estimations to one another. Then, if their estimations are very close and similar, they can be averaged as one whole estimation. But if not, another discussion is held to evaluate the differences in their old estimates and a new estimate will be made. Technique is time boxing, which means a box or space of time is allocated for sprint, or simply to say, to do a certain task. Time boxing is usually used in agile projects, and they can also be used when we want to focus on the development of a specific activity or task in a given time. Next is top-down technique, which determines on the entire project's budget and timeline, which is often done by the senior or upper management. The data based on previous projects are typically used by the managers in applying percentages and ensures the estimates will remain reasonable. Moving on is the bottom-up technique, which compared to the top-down technique, instead of determining the project's schedule and budget as one whole, bottom-up technique breaks the project into smaller modules and calculates the time and effort required for each module separately. As we learn about the work breakdown structure, it serves as the basis for this technique since it has defined all of the project phases and activities, which we call it as work packages. Last one is poker planning. Knowingly, it is a version of the Delphi technique, which is further improved by using a deck of cards or sequences like the Fibonacci numbers. In poker planning, all of the project team members will get together and do estimations by using poker as its medium. This technique consists of players, which are the team members, and a moderator who will describe a particular task, deliverable, feature,
Okay. Actually, I also that the video will continue. Okay, because no thank you, right? Okay, because I know that this group actually come up with the over limit of the time. So they try to cut the time. So maybe the thank you one, they'll remove it. That's why they get the limit of the time 10 minutes. So let me share the link for the understanding level first. Okay. So please vote if you understand more than half. So you can choose yes. If you think that you understand a little bit and below the half, so you can choose half. Okay. And no if you did not understand at all. Okay. Okay, we have 9 votes. After I reach, I get a 30 response, I will stop the voting. So at least I have 30 lah. 17, 19, right? Keep voting. Okay, 21, 23, 24. All right, good. Done voting. 83% half understanding. Okay. No one say yes. Okay. 70% say no. Okay. Hopefully after my explanations, the one say no can move to maybe half or maybe directly say yes, maybe half can move to the yes understanding, right? Okay, so before I continue with my summary of the topic, okay, let's do a quiz first. Just a simple quiz, basic on the topic 5. You only have 2 questions. Check in the chat box. I post the link. Choose your name, your group, and then answer question number 1 and 2. Okay. 1, complete the quiz. Okay. We will do a quiz about 5 minutes, okay, for with everyone complete their quiz. Those finish, you may take 5 first. Okay. 10, done. 11, 15. We will stop the quiz at 2:35. Okay, 21, 24, easy questions, right? Question number 1 asking you what WBS stand for, which is our topic today. And question number 2, parameter of project priority matrix, which is not the one that your friends mentioned in the triangle shape just now. So what is not included in that? 31 done, 33. Okay, 38. 2 minutes more. Okay, 41. So supposedly we have 46 responding. Let me check if any one of you are using 2 device instead of me. Okay. It seems everyone are using 1 device only. Okay, 9, 47 minus 2, 45. Right? Okay, 45. Huh? Okay, 1 minute more. Now we have 42. Complete the quiz. Last 1 minute. Okay, the time's almost over, but the number of response still have not yet changed, still 43. Okay, time's up. 43 response. Okay, actually we have 46. I'm not sure why. Okay, anyone else wants me to open more times, or it should be fine? I stop first. Ada lagi tak yang nak jawab? Kalau tak ada objections, then I stop the response, accepting the response. Okay. Alright. So let me share the result here. Okay, 43. Complete the quiz. Question number 1. WBS stand for, right, work. W, every word have work. Second, B stand for breaking, breakdown, breakdown, breakdown. Breakdown, right? Not breaking, breakdown. Okay. And S stand for structure. So work, breakdown, structure. So most of you are getting a right answer. Only one person lah. Tersilap klik agaknya nak cepat ke apa ni kan. Work breaking pula kan. Work breakdown. Okay. Breaking tu dia pecah-pecah kan. Breakdown tu dia pecah ke bawah. Macam mana? Dia berpecah. Breakdown ni pecah. Pecah-pecah kecil. Question number 2. Parameter of project priority matrix which is not. Okay, not. Almost everyone get a correct answer. Okay, date. We didn't mention about the date, right? So scope, yes, right? Scope, yes. Okay. Cost, yes. And actually they are not using a time. Apa word satu lagi yang kita guna di sini? Scope, cost, and schedule, right? So actually it's a time lah. So not a specific date. Okay. So which is not is the date, right? Senang je kan? Okay, let me stop. Okay, let me start sharing the lecture note for today. Okay, actually this topic is quite simple. Okay, just a few definitions you need to understand lah. Okay, so we are still in planning phases. Okay, but now we are talking about the scope and also the work breakdown structure, which is in short we call WBS. Okay, so at the end of this topic, wait, you can't see my slide, right? Okay. Let me share again. Right. Okay, now okay. Okay, so at the end of this topic, okay, you should understand and describe the relationship among scope, schedule, and budget. Okay, if you increase the scope, so the schedule will be increased and also the budget will be also increased, right? So scope is the project deliverable, okay, and to deliver the project, okay, you should have a schedule, and also to deliver it you need a budget, right? So that's the relationship among scope, schedule, and budget. Okay, the general is if I increase the scope, so schedule and budget followed increase. Okay, how if I increase the schedule? What happened? The schedule is on the timeline, right? Okay, how if I make it more faster? The schedule is much more faster. Anything happen between these three? How about the budget? Is it any change? Any change of the cost? Of course, you might reduce the cost, right? But at least it's under the budget, right? Under the budget, okay, not over budget. How about the scope? If you can make it more faster within the budget, okay, which is scope will not affected, okay, you deliver it more fast, okay. How? If I change the budget, okay, I reduce the budget, okay, what happened to schedule and scope? Scope change up. What happened? Change. You may need to reduce your scope because you have limited budget, right? How about schedule? Will change also, right? Because you increase the budget, maybe due of your limited resources, you have limited staff, okay? So you change the budget. So the scope will be changed also, and the schedule also will be changed, okay? So the most important is on the scope. Okay? That's why in this topic, we are explaining on the scope, because the crucial part, if the scope increase, schedule and budget will need to increase as well. Because if that, budget will over budget. Schedule is out of schedule, right? Okay, so that will be affected. And then you should be able to understand the process and apply several tools for defining and managing the scope of a project. Do you still remember what is the process for the scope? What you need to do at first? What is the process? Number one, you need to plan. Lambatnya respon ni. Plan the scope. Second,
collect requirement.
collect the requirement. Third,
Define scope.
define the scope. Fourth, create.
WBS tu.
Yes, create WBS. And after you create WBS, number 5, valid the scope. And lastly, control the scope. Okay, that's the process lah. Okay, and then third, understand the difference between project scope and product scope. Looks like same thing, right? Some of your friends have asked me, okay, is that a difference between project scope and product scope? Okay, actually it is different. Okay, project scope is the project management. Okay, remember that in topic 2 you learn about the methodology, right? You have the methodology of using SDLC or project life cycle. Okay, project life cycle. Okay, that's the project scope. Okay, within the method and also PLC that you choose. However, for product scope, okay, it's specifically for the product, okay, where it's on the features and function. Okay, what is features and function? Where this is the one that you need to complete to develop the product, okay, and you use it as a use case. Use case later on you will learn about use case. Okay, and then number 4 is to develop the work breakdown structure. Okay, so work breakdown structure is one of the tools, project management tool, okay, to make it easy for you to break down, okay, the work that who get involved in the project. Okay, and then you can differentiate between deliverable and also milestone. What is the difference between deliverable and milestone? Anyone? Deliverable is tangible, you can see. For example, the presentations, the report, the prototype, okay, whereas the milestone is hard to see lah. It's on the achievement. You achieve the phases, talking about the quality control also. Okay, and lastly, you can describe and apply several project estimation method. Okay, we have a few project estimation methods. One of it is, I think in this lecture note there is six method. Okay, can you name it? One, guesstimating, kan? Yeah, guesstimating. Next, Delphi technique. Lambatnya. Okay, third, time boxing. Fourth, top down. Fifth, bottom up. Lastly, poker planning. Okay, I explained the whole first at the beginning, and I will ask again at the end of this chapter. I just give you the overall. Okay, let's look one by one. Okay, first, you need to know what is scope, right? Scope is defined by work boundaries and deliverable. So what is scope? Work boundaries and deliverable. So what's the difference between this? Work boundaries is your limitation of your project. The deliverable, it should be tangible. Okay, you can see what you delivered in the scope of your project. Okay, is it in terms of presentations, reporting, prototype? Okay, so overall scope is to make sure that what you listed in your project will the one that you need to complete, done it. Okay, so scope is determined by project MOV. Remember that in previous chapter you learned how to do project MOV, which is the objective, right? The objective of the project. Okay, so it's already been determined there. Okay, and then scope also define in details all the works, activities, and deliverable that the project must be provided. Okay, to achieve the MOV. Okay, scope can be defined using work breakdown structure, WBS. Okay, so WBS actually a project management tool. Okay, instead of you are using a manually, okay, it can design or it can be structured using a project management tool that available online. Okay, so how it looks like, it's kind of hierarchy maksudnya hierarchy structure. Okay, as a bridge or link between the project scope and detail of the project that have been created. Okay, so this is the triple constraint between the budget, scope, and schedule. Okay, your friend just now in the slide, I think they accidentally typing wrong text project here, right? So should be budget, scope, and schedule. I think you missed the word schedule. You repeat the word project. So actually budget, scope, and also schedule. So the project is balanced in harmony when the schedule, budget, and scope is in order to achieve the MOV. Okay. However, if it become imbalanced, okay, when you increase the scope, okay, so increase the scope meaning that the budget also should be increased, and also the schedule should be more times, like will include more times. So in the management of the scope, okay, we have a few process. Okay, first, okay, you need to plan the scope management first, where you define and document how the project and product scope will be defined, verified, or if there are any change. Okay, if necessary. Okay, after you plan the scope, okay, you need to collect the requirement. Okay, requirement from your customer, sponsor, stakeholder, what they are requesting, needs, expect for your project. Okay, and then you define back your scope. Okay, after you have the plan and also the collection of the requirement, you define again the scope. Okay, so this to detail out the description of the product, service, project that will be implemented. Okay. And after that, after you get your scope defined, you need to create the WBS. Okay, so WBS decompose or dividing into a major project deliverable, which is talking about the scope, okay, into a smaller and more manageable component. Okay, and after that you need to identify your scope. Okay, you validate your scope. Okay, validate your scope by confirmations and acceptance the project scopes between the developer and also the stakeholder. Okay, and not only that, okay, all the project team members also need to agree with the scope, talking about the WBS and so on. Okay, after done, then you need to have a control scope. Okay, so control scope important to ensuring that your project, okay, will be managed, have a term and condition lah. How far can you change the scope, something like that. This is the best for you to communicate with your stakeholder. If there is something that they want to change, you need to refer back the scope. Okay, our agreement on the scope is like this, so you can't add more, or unless you need to increase also the budget so we can improve the scope, something like that. Like this, the after the agreement, because you already valid, right? So you should have the control of the scope. So this is in detail of what we will do in each process here. Okay, so basically is kind of what I mentioned just now. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 process. Okay, plan scope, collect requirement, and then define the scope, and then create the WBS, validate the scope, and finally control the scope. So when we talk about the scope boundaries or limitations, all are defined in your project MOB, right? To achieve the project MOB. So all defined in documentations. So anything outside from the scope, okay, you can argue, okay, argue on that. In case there is a agreement lah that increase the budget and so on. But you already have the limit lah. If no scope of boundary, it's very difficult for you to move forward for your projects. Ada je yang nak perubahan, ada je yang nak tambah kan. So you should put your scope. Scope important, okay? In your FYP as well, okay? You should define anything scope within the scope. Remember, scope is the deliverable and also what you should do to complete your objective. Same similar thing in FYP. Your scope should cover the objective, okay, and objective and domain. Okay, so outside from it, you can argue that's out of my scope. Okay, so scope is very important. Okay, so define any scope, any limitations, and domain that you do inside the scope, which is to achieve the objective or project MOB in this case of project. Okay, so statement of work, SOW. In our course also, we have SOW given to the lecturer, and also the lecturer need to explain to the students what is our course syllabus, right? So our syllabus is covered until that scope. So similar with statement of work lah. Okay, so it's a narrative descriptions, okay, of the product or service or information systems on the project lah, on the project or on the course, like we are now in the course of this subject. Okay, so we have for internal project, okay, normally is tied with the business need. Okay, but for external, for prospect bidder, if the bidder, okay, or bidder is the one who bid lah to take the tender, to get the tender, right? So they know that what scope of the project, okay, so they can bid how much they put a cost for that. Okay, the SOW is often included in a document that may be called request for proposal, request for informations, or request for bid. All these are quite similar. Request proposal, request information, and request for bid, same thing. Okay, it's talking about the statement of work lah, scope of the work. Okay, Just the format might be different for the proposal format and also purpose. Okay, proposal is maybe to propose a project, right? Information is giving the information, bid is for the tender and so on. Okay, so scope statement, okay, is another way to define the scope boundary. Okay, it is a detailed document because sometimes you might forgot to put what your project's limitation, right? Example that you mentioned that our system will cover secondary school. Okay, so you didn't mention secondary school. Is it for all subject? Is it for all student? Is it for all school? Will be good if you more details on what you give a scope. Example that your project covering secondary school, okay, but limited to math subject, for example. Okay, so be as detailed as the project of your limitations. If you miss the scope, you may get get a problem. People will think that your project is big, but actually you are only have covered small project. So try to be as detailed as you can lah. You can say that your evaluation will cover a few that only use the system, for example. So you put as detailed as can. Okay, then you can justify later on when people say that, how many of your participants, why we only have a 30? So you can justify why your project is until that number, until that limit. So put it in the scope. Okay, scope. So example, okay, we can see here example of scope statement here. The objective is to develop a proactive electronic commerce strategy that identify the process, product, service to be delivered through www. Next, to develop an application that support all the process, product, service identified in the electronic commerce strategy. So up until the electronic commerce strategy. So you put the limit, you are covering the domain of electronic commerce strategy. And the third objective is the application must be integrated with banking existing enterprise resource planning. But if your project is much more smaller, you can state it. Is it all bank you will cover? Is it all the financial provider included e-wallet? So you need to be as detailed as you can lah. Okay, so later on you can justify. Project-oriented scope and product-oriented scope. Okay, just now we have a differentiate between project scope and product scope. Okay, same thing. Okay, so on the project, it's covering the process of the project management, where the one that you choose in your method, the project life cycle, choosing the project methodology that you choose. Okay, for example, that SDLC that you choose is under waterfall. Okay, so all the process, the projects are following the process. Okay, and you might remove the maintenance part. Okay, in your FYP, sometimes we did not cover the maintenance, right? We until develop and then we delivered. We didn't do the maintenance. Like in project as well, we are not doing the maintenance. Maintenance is under another contract level that to proceed with the maintenance contract. Okay. For the product oriented scope, okay, specify the features and function. Okay. That's why in chapter 1, okay, a part of your scope, okay, you need to put the module. Okay, module is the specific features and function that what you should develop. Okay, your features is up to how many modules? 5 modules, 4 modules. So be specified. Okay, and normally the product-oriented scope will be defined using use case diagram. This is on the implementation later on, but in chapter 1, okay, normally we put the module, okay, the module in terms of features and function first. Okay, and for implementation later on, you will define using a use case diagram, which is a system modeling tool to refine the scope boundary to make your users more understand the scope of your project and what your system or application will do. Okay, when we talking about the out of scope, there is a lot of things that outside from your scope. It may because of the technology, organizational assessment of the current environment, customer resource management and data mining component. Okay, example that you are using your development covering platform for Android platform only. So you can mention in your scope. Okay, so people will not question you. Is your project cover the iOS and also the Android? When you put it in the scope, so people will identify, okay, your scope is focusing on the Android users only. Something like that, on the technology. Okay. What else you can mention? You can say that your projects is covering a few factors inside the company only. Outside meaning that policy, government, tax inflations is not in covering in your project. So if there is a charge on the policy, changing in the policy or the tax, so that's not included in your scope. So people might need to, your stakeholder may need to add another fees if there is outside issues on the scope of policy, government and so on. Okay. What else? Okay. The second one, customer resource management and data mining. So it also can be mentioned of the numbers. Okay, numbers and area that you covered. Okay, anything. That's why try to be as detailed and as specific the scope that you want to mention in your report. Okay, so that selamat you have that in the scope. So project scope defined by the boundary. Okay, scope mean boundary, limit. Okay, so it is the statement. Okay, the statement. Okay, so not only one statement, you can have a few statements. Okay, you can say that your scope first talking about the domain. Okay, your second scope is talking about the time limitations. But normally in project, okay, of course we also need to mention about the normally we are talking about the scope, cost and also the time, right? So what I always read in project students, they mention about the money and also times. Okay, you know that your project have one semester for your first project 600, right? And then 650 you have another one semester. So you are talking about the time limitations. That's the importance of time management. That's why I don't want to see these two limitations, time and cost. Okay, when you talk about the cost, you said that your projects is proposing a system that you have a limitation on the cost. You don't have that budget. Try not to mention it. That's why you need to have a scope. So your scope should be smaller lah. So you don't have to increase or have more money to create the project. Try avoid to mention about the time and also cost. Similar with project actually. We seldomly mention about these two because we already define our scope, right? So the scope is within the budget. So normally we will not put the cost in the scope. Only the limitation or what the project is covering only. Okay. To define a scope, okay, there is a few tools to be used. Okay, you can use deliverable definition table, deliverable structured chart, context level data flow diagram, use case diagram. So in UIT and behavior, I think they are most use context level and also use case, right? You are using UML, object oriented in your method, right? In UMS, we are using DFDE and ERD, okay? But yours are using context diagram, okay, followed by the use case and followed by the activity diagram, sequence diagram, okay, more on UML, okay. This is an example of deliverable structured chart, okay. So you can draw like this one, okay, example, electronic commerce bank project, okay. So you divide your deliverable structure chart into initial, project charter and plan, execute and control, close project and evaluation projects. So below that, you have to analyze design, construct, testing and implementations, okay. This is example of use case diagram. Okay, this one is a language that been easily explained to your customer or client. Okay, so using a use case, we have four main elements where you have the actors. Actors is this one lah, customer ERP system manager. And second thing, you have the system in this rectangle is the whole system. So this is the scope of the system. Inside of the system, inside the rectangle, okay, you have a small oval, right? So this is the third element of the use case, where we call it use case. Okay, use case is the features and function lah, what your system can do. Okay, and lastly, the relationship or association. Okay, so between the actor and use case is mandatory lah, to have the actor what they can do. Okay, and we have two actor, but not necessary. Yeah, we have two actor actually, primary and also secondary. The one that giving the input and the one that responds from the input. Okay, so you will learn further on the use case diagram later on. So and then we need to validate the scope. Okay, how to validate the scope? Okay, there is a few options to do a validation. Okay, one of it is verification of the MOB. Okay, using a documentations of all deliverables, specification of quality standard, identification of milestone, or by doing review and acceptance. Okay, sometimes they put more than one validation scope. Sometimes they only choose one because the most important is depend lah. Sometimes they are only valid scope in the term of MOV, but actually it's good to valid to see all this, include all the MOV, all the deliverable is document. Okay, quality standard is in the bar standard or should be higher than the standard. Okay, the milestone is been identified, and lastly review and then accept the scope. Okay, right. Lastly is the control scope, right? Control scope important because there is a risk, okay, to your stakeholder or your client. Okay, there is a risk they will ask you for change the scope. Okay, so it should have this control scope, okay, concerning with managing change of the scope and to ensure that these change are beneficial when they occur. Okay, so the potential issues of having the control scope is scope group. Scope group is the inability to define project scope. Okay, both party, okay, either the stakeholder or the developer still not very understand of the scope. Okay, so these issues might happen. Okay, so second things is the scope creep, okay, where your stakeholder keep changing, keep requests to continue uncontrolled growth of the project scope. Come back to you and then ask for the change, ask for the extension, ask for to improve it. So this we call it scope creep. Lastly, we have scope leap. Okay, scope leap is the dramatic shift in strategic focus. So this one is more on the organization, like the whole of stakeholder or maybe your client. because of the change of the organization focus, okay, it may lead to the scope leap. So this also a big issues lah. Okay, so how to do a change that's mentioned here? Actually, we can put it as a term and condition in the scope. Okay, that's why you need to have a control of scope. Put it in term and condition before these three issues we raise, right? So how to do that? Okay, we should have the scope change request form and also scope change request log. Okay, you need to have a form, fill up the form. Okay, you need to have a documentation. Okay, what you want to request for change after the system done, right? So you want to request for changing some part of the system. So fill up the form first. Okay, and the person will go through and look into that. Is there a major changing or just a minor? Okay, and also scope change request log is important. Okay, because maybe it's turned out that not only one request, you may have many requests. Example that you create a system for a company, internal. So the one that use the system is the staff in the company, right? So you get a complaint. Okay, you get a complaint that they couldn't use the system well, or they request some of the features that not a part of your scope. Okay, so I believe that there's not only one complaint, should be more than that, right? So that's why you have a request log. So you can see how many request log been requested by your client. Okay, if there is a lot request, right, and this also good for tracking lah, good for tracking which one is already done, kan, which one is already already improved. Okay, so this is the example for scope change request form. This is not a standard. Okay, this is depend on the company what kind of information that you need to look at. Okay, this is one of the example. This is the one for the request log. Like I said that you may have a request more than one, so it's good for you to do the request log so that you can track how many and which one is done and which one is still in improving. Okay, next, work breakdown structure. Okay, after we define the scope, we need to create the WBS, right? So in PMBOK, remember what is PMBOK? Project Life Cycle, right? Okay, we have PRINCE and PMBOK. Based on PMBOK guide, okay, it's stated that WBS actually represent logical decomposition of the work. Okay, and it perform and focus on how the product, service, or the result is naturally subdivided. So in other words, is the outline, okay, outline of what work to be performed. Okay, so work package here. From the projects to the phase and then deliverable. This is one example of WBS lah, to see that the work breakdown is something like this. From the projects is divided into two phases. Okay, one is deliverable, one is milestone. Okay, deliverable is the one that you can see, okay, the activity, what is the activity inside the project. Okay, and the milestone is deliverable of completion, to see the phase by phase milestone. Okay, and the second one is the whole milestone. Okay, looking on the phase completion. Okay, how many phases that you need to complete, okay, for the projects. Okay, so this is the breakdown. And you need to define or differentiate between deliverable versus milestone. Okay, looks similar, right? This is after the implementation or in the implementation phases where you have deliverable and milestone. Okay, so for the deliverable is something that tangible, that you can see, you can feel it, you can verify it. Okay, the work product. Okay, for example, in phase 1, okay, you should come up with the preliminary report. Okay, and phase 2, you should present the project completion. In phase 3, okay, you should submit the full report. Before report, prototype. You should come up with the prototype first. Okay, and the last phase is to submit the full report. Okay, whereas for milestone is showing the significant events or achievement. Okay, acceptance of deliverable or phase completions, crux, proof of concept, quality control, keep them focused. This one to make sure that in phase 1, okay, in detail, what should be achieved. Okay, so the output is the deliverable, okay, but the checking who are doing that and the quality control until what phases, okay, to make sure that people are looking at, okay, we are in phase 1, so what our milestone and what we should deliver. Okay, so a work package is delivered for each of the phases, and okay, this is to follow lah. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phases here. Okay, and for the initial part, okay, you should come up with the business case. For the project charter and plan, okay, you come up with the project charter and project planning. For execution, okay, and control, you have more breakdown works where you have the analysis, design, construction, testing, and implementations. And then only you move to the next phase, which is the final and the acceptance report on the testing. And finally, you evaluate the success or failure of the project. Okay, project evaluation. Deliverable test result report. Okay, if you can see, the deliverable is something that tangible. You can see report, the result of the report. Logical activities, review the test plan, carry out the test. When the test result is collected, then you need to summarize it and then sign acceptance, sign off for the project done, delivered. Okay, so this is an example of work breakdown schedule. Okay, you can see here. This is not one of the example. Actually, there is a lot more work breakdown schedule. This is one of it. Okay, if you can see that it's more detailed on the test report, what you need to be delivered. Okay, and the milestone as well. Okay, another work breakdown structure can be drawn like this one also. You have the work package tally with the detail of the projects. So it shows the projects, introductions, the phases that included. You map the work package with the breakdown structure. So things to keep in mind when developing WBS. Okay, make sure it support the project MOV, deliverable oriented, support planning and control, and finally should involve those who are doing the job. Okay, from the planning until the deliver. All right. So estimation questions, what are you going to estimate? Where do you start? How do you estimate? So actually, for answering these questions, there is a estimation techniques. Okay, we have a traditional project management approach. Okay, we have 6 tools here. First is guesstimating, guessing, right? Guess estimating. Delphi technique using expert, okay, survey panel expert. Time boxing, top down, bottom up, and poker planning. Let's go through one by one. Guesstimating. Okay, the word guess and guess estimate, right? Guess plus estimate. So you can identify that it's based on guessing. Okay, guess the estimations. Okay, I'm not sure that this is the best tools or not, but this one easy and quick. Okay, because you by guessing and estimate it, right? So this is one. Number 2, using a Delphi technique, okay, where it involves expert, okay, multiple expert, okay, and each expert will come up with their own estimations, and you need to analyze it and take the average result from it. Okay. Next, time boxing. This one is using a box time. Time boxing box in timing. Normally is on the agile project. Okay. The word time boxing is box lah of a time. Okay. You put times limit in the box in the box in the box. Okay. So can focus a team if used effectively, can demoralize or a team if not used effectively. So because when you not finish in one box, you cannot move to the next box. So that's why good. Okay, it can focus if it can effectively if you have the focus team, but it will not effective if the team is not focused lah, demoralized. Okay. Next, top down. The word top down normally is from the top management, top management to the staff, to the lower part. So top and middle manager is the one who determine overall project and schedule it, make it a scope or schedule it, schedule, costing, and also create the scope lah. Okay, so lower level manager are expected to break down the schedule budget, okay, into a specific activities. Okay. Other than top down, we have bottom up, bottom to the up, meaning that it start from the below part. Schedule budget are construct from WBS. Okay, so it start with the people who are doing it, right? Individually, people are giving the task. You are the one are doing estimations, scope, how long it will be completed, what cost is needed, okay? And then only you propose to the upper level, okay? And then lastly is the poker planning. Is the variation of Delphi technique, okay, is using the deck of card. That's why the name of poker is come from the deck of card. Okay, so this one is using the estimate in days. Okay, moderator describe the particular task. So those involved, okay, will showing the card. Okay, how long it takes, what is the scope, okay, to deliver the task features. Okay, this method is kind of gamifications. You play with it, okay, and so at the end you come up with your project estimations using this method. Okay, so I think this is the last slide. Okay, yes, okay, let us revise again with okay, so which one is the best? Okay, project estimation method. So every method have a pro and cons, right? So for this one, poker planning, I think this one interesting, but there is a risk, okay? Because it's based on the card, kan? Lucky or unlucky, right? So using the card, okay, your planning is using the card, okay? Actually the famous method for project estimations is using Delphi lah, Delphi, asking the expert, okay, and then analyze, and you get the result from average result from all the expert. That's the most lah. Like I said, guesstimating also good because it's quick and easy, but also there is a risk lah if the scope is not because you are just guessing, right? But guessing with the proper MOV, that's will be good. Okay. Sometimes you need to use a top down. Okay, top down. Normally the top down is also good. Okay, that's why I said every method have pro and cons. Top down good because of the top management will tell you, okay, we only have 100 days to complete this project. So pass to the manager, you are the one that need to manage the 100 days, divide into your people will doing that job. My understanding is after 100 days, you need to deliver the project. Okay, bottom up also good actually. Every person who get involved in the project come up with their own estimations of the scope and also the cost and also the time schedule, and then we'll gather all, okay, and then you come up with the estimation time. But of course, it include the validation and verification as well. Not just totally take it. So you need also have a discussion, okay? Because sometimes when you total up, okay, of course, some of us are giving a maximum time, right? So it's turned out maybe a project turn out become 10 days, but 10 years to complete. So it's not reasonable, right? So you need to discuss again, and then to make sure that everyone, maybe after you turn out 100 days, 10 years, then you tell them our project should be done in 3 years, for example. So they need to refine again the work scope and also the time that they are estimating. Instead of they are giving the maximum time, yeah. Of course, you also will learn one of the others project management tool is using PERT analysis and also critical path analysis. Yeah, that's the estimation time on the scheduling lah. So later on the tutorial we will learn. Okay, so overall that's about the scope and also WBS. Okay, so hopefully you can understand the word scope, right? Scope. So first, okay, actually you only need to understand 6 items. First, you know the relationship between scope, schedule, and budget. Scope increase, of course, budget will be affected increase and also schedule, right? Okay, second thing, process. How many process that we have to determine the scope? We have how many process? 6.
6.
Plan scope, again, plan scope. Collect requirement. Define scope.
Create WBS.
S.
Validate.
Create the scope, and finally control. And then third, you should be identify or differentiate between project scope and product scope. Easiest product scope is mentioning about features and function, where project scope much more bigger. You have the phases in PLC and also your SDLC. So that's the scope that you need to follow. Right? For the product, focusing on the features and function. And normally we will draw the use case to show the scope of the product scope. Okay, and then the fourth things is you need to know what should you identify before you develop WBS, because WBS is using a project management tool. Okay, you have many tools to create a WBS. Okay, if you Google how to create WBS, there is a lot of tools that are available that you can use it. Okay, so to create a WBS, you need to understand it must be support the MOV. It must be deliverable and oriented, support the planning and also control, and finally include who are involving in the project. Okay, and the fifth thing, you should differentiate between deliverable and milestone. Deliverable is something tangible, you can see, report, presentation, prototype. Okay, but milestone is most on the phases and achievement. Okay, and last one is your project estimation method. How many method that we have to do a project estimation? Again, same with process just now. We have 6. Name it. 1. Not in order also can.
Guesstimating.
Guesstimating. Next.
Delphi technique.
Delphi technique. Next.
Time box.
Time boxing. Next.
Top down.
Top down. And then bottom up. And finally, last one.
Poker planning.
Senang tak? So ada 6 benda lah at least yang you kena tahu kan. Hubungan, relationship, scope, schedule, budget, process, what is differentiate between project scope and product scope, and then what should you consider when you want to develop WBS, what is different between deliverable and milestone, and finally, what is project estimation method? What option that we have? So done. Ada 6 benda saja kan? Boleh faham? Okay.
Boleh.
Alright, good. So alright, good. So to remind you that for your test, okay, for your test after your mid-sem break, actually we only have 2 lecturers on this subject, okay, in UiTM Jasin lah. So we agreed to do a test a week after your mid-sem break. So we have 1 week to do a revision after you back. Okay, manalah tahu kan, dah seronok sangat bercuti, panjang sangat cuti, pilihan raya banyak sangat gosip kan, sampai terlupa apa dah belajar. At least we can have 1 week for the revision, okay, before your test. Okay, and again to I mean the group from group A, right, the other group, okay, the group C is CNA or CNB, saya lupa dah. Okay, group C I did mention, kan, the first group that we should meet in Monday, kan. The question is only 2 questions subjective, okay, 1 question from topic 1 to 3, and another 1 questions from topic 4 and 5. Meaning that not only specific 1 questions, adalah anak cucu dia kecil-kecil, 1, A, Roman 1, Roman 2, macam tu lah lebih kurang. So 2 subjective question and 2 question each for objective questions. Each topic will have 2 objective. So we have 5 topic, 5 times 2, 10 objective. So overall you have 2 subjective plus 10 objective question. Okay, so since we agreed that the test will be a week after your mid-sem break, hopefully after your mid-sem break we can do a revision first, covered topic 1 until topic 5, okay, and then only hopefully everyone can pass. Not only pass lah, we aim for getting the A kan, semua nak A kan. So that's the aim of the ni lah, the revision and also to revise again and again, right? Okay, ada soalan?
Tiada.
Macam tak ada semangat je. Can you revise again what 5 topic that we have learned so far? Topic 1, what is topic 1? Ingat lagi ke? First topic apa dia? Tak ingat ke? Introduction, right?
Project methodologies.
Project methodologies is chapter 2.
Second, Doctor. Maaf.
Chapter 1, the introduction, right? Introductions. Yeah, introduction of project management. And then only you have the project methodology and process. The third chapter?
MOV.
MOV, yes, MOV, okay, measurable organizations value, right? Okay, and then last week punya chapter, we already start project planning. So we have already gone through 2 project planning. First is apa last week punya? Lupa dah, infrastructure, right? And then today is the scope and WBS. Senang je. Kan? Okay? Any further questions?
No, Doctor.
Okay. Aduh, you all ni kan. Alright, okay. So, okay tak saya punya makeup hari ni? Alright.
Okay, Doctor. Cantik,
Okay, Doctor. Okay.
Ni kan, nak kena cakap yang main-main sikit baru respon. Alright, okay. I think that's all for